This podcast is part of E2C Network, where we share the whole Auburn experience.
Welcome to Inside the Jungle, your podcast for all things Auburn basketball. I am your co-host, Chandler Fullman, and I am joined with my other co-host, Jace Phillips. Jace, how's things going?
Going pretty well, Chandler. How about yourself?
Pretty good. After that game last night versus Arkansas, I booked my Final Four tickets, and I'm ready for the Natty.
I hear you.
The game before that, I was ready to lose out. I was ready to lose every game the rest of the year.
Definitely.
So we've got two kind of polar opposite Auburn teams to discuss in this episode, but we're gonna talk about the first three SEC games. And Jace, just initial thoughts on the first three games in SEC play and how you think Auburn has played.
Well, obviously, I don't really think we're off to the best start as far as just how we're playing as a team. 2-1 is not an awful start by any means, but how we got those two wins wasn't necessarily the prettiest. One of them we played pretty well, but one of those wasn't the prettiest, and then the loss was obviously a loss that I think we were expecting to win going into it. So not off to the best start, but definitely could be worse.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. The second game versus at Georgia, that was obviously concerning, but before that was the Florida game. We opened SEC play, I believe, on December 28th versus Florida at Auburn Arena. And this was Bruce Pearl's, I believe, his first time coaching against Todd Golden, his former assistant coach, that I believe was his assistant for 2 or 3 seasons. At the beginning of his tenure here at Auburn. So that was an interesting dynamic. I feel like it's Florida's player Colin Castleton. I feel like he's in his
17th year.
His 17th year at Florida. But it was a very close game, not the prettiest game.
Nope.
But Auburn found a way to win.
We did, and the way this team has found a way to win this year, I think it's just going to be that kind of team, the kind of team that they need to just stay in the game and give themselves a chance to win at the end. I don't see this team being a team that's going to beat a lot of guys by 20 points or more but a win is a win, and if this team can find ways to win games, that's all that matters.
Yeah, that's right. And there was, looking at the stat line, there's not really anybody that just showed out or stood out spectacularly. We had 3 guys in double digits: Janai Broome, Jalen Williams, and Wendell Green Jr., with Wendell and Janai co-leading in points with 14 points. And I would say through the first 3 SEC games, that's been our 2 leaders, Wendell Green and Janai Broome.
I would say so. Janai Broome, hats off to him. He's played pretty well in all 3 games. He's didn't rebound as good this last game, but still I think he was very close to a double-double. And even in this Florida game, starting off 14 points, 11 rebounds.
Yeah.
He's capable of scoring up towards the 20 range, but 14 and 11, I'll take that most games.
Yeah, I would like to see Janai's average. Maybe we can calculate that through 3 SEC games. We'll have to get to that in just a second. But I know the first 2 games he had a double-double. I don't think this last game
I think he had 8 or 9.
Yeah, I think he was a few rebounds short. But I'm guessing and assuming that he may be averaging a double-double in SEC play. But yeah. Janai Broome has been extremely impressive.
Definitely. And let's not get ahead of ourselves talking about Arkansas quite yet, because one thing I want to highlight in this Florida game is how we defended Colin Castleton. Janai Broome, 14-11, that's good, but how he was able to contain Castleton and Cardwell coming in when he had to and helping contain Castleton, even though he didn't really do much on the scoring end, I felt like we really defended Florida well and played pretty good defensive basketball as a team.
Yeah, I agree, and I thought it was interesting that there were 0 Florida starters that had double digits in points. Now, 2 of their bench players, Reeves and Jones, they had double digits, and that's kind of ironic. Marion Jones, that had 10 points. He is from Birmingham, Alabama, and he played at Huffman High School, and so that is one that I'm assuming, I don't know, but I'm guessing that Bruce Pearl said, thanks, but no thanks.
Yeah.
But who knows what the story with that is, but it is, it's good to see an Alabama guy get, be one of the leading scorers for the other team. And, but I thought, like you said, Auburn did a wonderful job keeping every single starter in single digits. Not one of their starters had double-digit points. And thought Auburn also did a very good job on the boards. We out-rebounded Florida 40-28. And, I mean, Janai Broome himself had 11. So that was quite impressive to see from Auburn.
Definitely. And I wanted to look here at the free throw percentage. We shot 67%. That's one that you want to see a little higher in conference play, but that has been a struggle this year for us is at the free throw line. I believe we were, let's see, it looks like 16 for 24. And we also didn't shoot the 3 ball very good, especially to be home in Neville Arena. Normally we shoot the 3 a little bit better than this game. We only hit 3 the whole game. And so that's a number that definitely is going to have to be up when you have those Tennessees and Kentuckys and Alabamas come in. You're definitely going to have a little bit higher 3-point percentage as well as free throw percentage to have a chance in those games.
Yeah, and Florida shot from the free throw line was very, very good. Shooting at a tip of 89.5%. They were 17 of 19 from the free throw line. Quite impressive from Florida and Todd Golden's crew.
Definitely.
But anything else about the Florida game? I didn't have a chance to go to that one. But Jace, how was the atmosphere at the Florida game? I know the students weren't back yet.
Right. It definitely was not what we would typically want for an SEC game. But for students not to have been back yet, I felt like it was a pretty decent crowd for people to fill in the student section. And there were still a few in standing room. So I would say it's still a pretty decent crowd.
Yeah. Well, that's good to hear. But let's move on to a sore or a not as good subject with the Georgia game, which was the following Wednesday. I believe, or I guess, assuming that Auburn did not play on Saturday, and I don't think any SEC teams played on Saturday because it was New Year's Eve and there was a lot of college football on, and I'm assuming that the basketball games just didn't want to rival with the football games on ESPN.
No.
But the Georgia game was on Wednesday, January 4th, and it did not go as well. Auburn took the trip over to Athens and Stegman Coliseum, and they could not hit a bear in the butt with a bass fiddle. It was an awful, awful shooting night for the Tigers. And they ended up dropping that game 76-64. Janai Broome was the one bright spot for Auburn. He had 22 points and 12 rebounds. The only other player in double digits was Alan Flanagan with 11 points. But Georgia played very well.
They did.
And
they shot the ball well. We didn't. And one thing that was just so frustrating about the Georgia game is we just did not get many quality possessions. And when we had a possession, we wouldn't take a tough shot, or we would force it, or we'd turn the ball over, and just none of our guards could really get going. Wendell couldn't hit a three. We just couldn't ever get that big shot to really get us going.
Yeah, Terry Roberts for Georgia was quite the star. He had 26 points, shot 8 of 16 from the field, and he was the main headliner. The Oquendo, I don't know his first name, but I feel like he's been at Georgia for a while. He's a junior. Cario Oquendo. He had 17 points. They were the only two Georgia players in double digits, but those two guys, they didn't really need anything else.
Nope.
Georgia played. I'm not even gonna say Georgia played great defense. Auburn just couldn't shoot the ball, which unfortunately seems to be a trend this season. At home, we tend to shoot it better, but on the road, the shooting, other than I guess the Washington game was the one positive shooting wise, but other than that, on the road, Auburn has been awful shooting the ball. So let's hope that changes as we travel to Ole Miss on Tuesday night, and to play a Ole Miss team that's not very good. But let's hope that changes.
But we always struggle when we go play at Ole Miss.
That is true. That is the Pavilion is, in my opinion, the nicest arena that Auburn plays in the SEC. So it is a very impressive facility, and I don't have enough good things to say about the Pavilion, but let's hope that changes for the better. So moving on to our third and last game that we will discuss, and that was the Arkansas game that happened yesterday. We are recording this on Sunday, January 8th. We played Arkansas on Saturday, January 7th, and Auburn got the 72-59 victory. And it was an overall very good game, I thought, for Auburn.
Definitely. It is crazy what playing at home can do for a team, because the jungle was electric. The team just had a lot more energy, a lot more intensity, and we pretty much had control the whole game. We never trailed, and we were able to pretty much keep I felt like an 8 to 12 point lead for the majority of that game.
Yeah, and I want to apologize to Janai Broome because we were wrong. Janai Broome did have his third straight double-double with 10 points and 10 rebounds yesterday. So I was questioning earlier whether or not he was averaging a double-double in SEC play. Well, I would probably pretty confidently say if he is 3 of 3, if he has had double-doubles in all 3 games, then he is probably averaging a double-double in SEC play. But that another impressive night from Janai Broome, but also Wendell Green. Wendell Green stepped up big time with going 5 of 8 from the field, had 19 points. And I also thought he did a great job of not turning the ball over.
Definitely.
He had 5 assists, but that was one of the most impressive parts, I thought, for Wendell Green was him and how he was taking care of the ball. But the other player that was in double digits was Alan Flanagan. And Alan, I think you could probably say maybe the third best player on this team. Now that is up for debate. There there are others that you could argue. Chris Moore, Jalen Williams, KD Johnson, Alan Flanagan. But, I mean, Alan, I don't know if he is quite his freshman or sophomore year self.
Yeah.
But he is pretty impressive, what we have seen so far this
Definitely.
year.
And when Allen is on, I mean, he can really, really, really help us out. I mean, when he's on from the 3-point line, when he's making smart passes, when he's playing well defensively without fouling, I mean, Allen can really, really, really be a big time key player for us when he's on.
Yeah. Two guys that I thought really stood out for Arkansas was Anthony Black and Robert Council IV. And that is, Ricky Council IV. They said on the broadcast that I don't believe it is a line of Ricky Council's. I believe that the dad, I could be wrong on this, but I believe they said the dad was Ricky Council I, and then he has two older brothers that are also Ricky Council II and Ricky Council III.
Okay.
So, quite an interesting dynamic.
Definitely.
For that one. But I don't care what his name is. He was a talented ball player, and let me not fail to mention that Arkansas was without two of their more talented players. One, I can't think of his name, is out for the season, and the other one was just out for this game. But that is, I feel like we caught the one, Trevon Brazile. He had surgery and he is out for the season. And then Nick Smith Jr. was the other one, and they said he was
very high recruit.
Yes, extremely high, and he will probably be back in a few games, according to the broadcast. But let's just be thankful that we caught Arkansas when we did, because if they had those two guys, it might be a different game.
Yeah, definitely.
Another just random notable player that I see on Arkansas's roster is Barry Dunning Jr., who is a freshman. And Barry Dunning Jr. is from Mobile, Alabama. Quite a talented high school player that really impressed me during his time in high school at McGill-Tulane. But just in Arkansas, and Eric Musselman, hate him, love him, feel however you want about him, but he has assembled an incredibly talented roster.
He has. And one key I felt like to this Arkansas game was when Joseph Pinion came into the game for Arkansas. He really, really killed Missouri from the 3-point line, and that's really what got Arkansas back into that game against Missouri last game. But we really, really contained him. We didn't let him get many open looks from three, and I felt like that was really, really helpful in helping us get this win.
Was it just me? And it could have been just me. But I feel like Mekhi Mitchell, number 15 for Arkansas, he looked like he was like 35 years old. I mean, that he looked like a grown man. And he played pretty well for Arkansas.
Yeah.
But thankfully, Mekhi Mitchell, he was absolutely horrible at shooting free throws.
So were lots of others. Arkansas did not shoot the ball very well from the free throw line, and that really, really ended up being detrimental to them, especially towards the end of the game.
Yeah, they went 19 of 32 from the free throw line, and that's for a percentage of 59.4, and like you said, that ended up hurting Arkansas. I mean, because if they would have made 5 or 6 or 7 more, and shot at around 80%, then we would have had a very close ball game. But thankfully, we did see Auburn have some major improvement from the free throw line, as they shot 17 of 22 for 77%. So it was nice to see Auburn have some improved free throw shooting, but Auburn did get out rebounded 45-32. But I think that was kind of to be expected, because Arkansas does have some really impressive bigs. But let's just say that we're glad that we caught Arkansas when we did. Yeah. Because, like I said earlier, with Nick Smith and Trevon Brazile, that could have been a different game.
Definitely.
But heading into this week, Auburn's travels to Oxford to take on Ole Miss on Tuesday. The game is at 8 o'clock on ESPNU. And then next Saturday, Auburn comes back and hosts Mississippi State at Neville Arena for another 7:30 p.m. tip, and that'll be on SEC Network.
Those are two really, really big games. Even though one of those are on the road, I feel like those are two games that we really, really need to win, because as we go on in SEC play, especially towards the end, our schedule's only going to get tougher.
Yeah, I agree, because I really think that Auburn needs to be at 10 or 11 wins by the 15 game mark. So I would like to start probably 11-4. Would be a good start, because the last three games, that is quite the slate. At Kentucky, at Alabama, and then hosting Tennessee.
I would at least like
at home.
I would at least like to be at worst. I would like us to be at 9 and hopefully steal one of those last three and get to 10. But that's worst case. I would hope that we could be to at least in that 9 win mark going into those last three.
Yeah, I feel like that's the low end of the goal to shoot for. 11 would be kind of the high end to shoot for. But Auburn has a very manageable early part of the SEC schedule.
Definitely. I will say that I am glad that a couple of these tougher games that we have come in the middle of SEC play against teams that are playing really good ball right now, so that hopefully that'll not only maybe that wear off, but maybe we'll start coming on at that point.
Yeah, that will be something to watch. But what do you think? What are your predictions on how Auburn will do against the Mississippi schools this next week?
I definitely think, I don't really get too nervous about home games as much as I probably should. I usually feel pretty good about any time we're hosting anybody. There's just something special about Neville Arena, and 27 straight home wins. That speaks for itself, I think. So I feel like we should definitely take care against Mississippi State. But Ole Miss, this week game, I feel like it's a very important game for us to come out and start fast. We've been bad about on the road getting off to a slow start and having to play catch up, and that ends up biting us in the butt. So I'm really hoping that the key to Ole Miss, I think, is coming out, getting a fast start and playing good defense. We gave up a lot of easy buckets against Georgia, and so making Ole Miss shoot the ball to beat us. Don't give them some easy paths to the goal, but make them make those tough shots.
Yeah, I would agree with that. But I think Auburn goes 2-0 this week. I'm gonna be optimistic, which I rarely am. But I feel good about this week after that Arkansas game, and I'm hoping that we can keep the momentum rolling on the road into Oxford on Tuesday night. But I think that will do it for this episode of Inside the Jungle. As Auburn basketball sits at 12-3 and 2-1 in SEC play, we are excited for the remainder of the season and the upcoming part of the SEC schedule. But we will talk to you next Saturday or Sunday. And until then, War Eagle.
War Eagle.
Thank you for tuning in to today's episode on the E2C Network. On your way out, I want to remind you to stop by e2cnetwork.com. It's your one-stop shop for all our content across our podcast, YouTube channel, and much more. To stay up to date with us, make sure you're following social media accounts such as Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. While our content here may always be Auburn sports heavy, if it's orange and blue, it's what we do. War Eagle.